my putrid little cinephiles. Dr. Ghoulula here, dragging you back down into the movie pit, where we dissect the most fucked up films ever committed to celluloid. And holy shit, do I have a sphincter-clenching treat for you today? We're diving ass first into Tom Six's 2009 monstrosity, The Human Centipede. A film so depraved, so utterly devoid of basic human decency that it practically dares you to watch it. Then dares you to recommend it to your friends. This is the movie that answers the question absolutely nobody was asking. What if a mad German doctor sewed 3 people together mouth the asshole? It's a film that's simultaneously horrifying and hilarious, disgusting, and technically impressive. A cinematic freak show that will make you gag, laugh, and question your life choices. Particularly the one where you decided to watch a movie about people eating shit directly from the source. But fuck it, we're in this together now, so let's get our hands dirty with this surgical nightmare. So the plot of The Human Centipede is about as straightforward as a goddamn enema. 2 American tourists, Lindsay and Jenny, are driving through Germany when their car breaks down. Like every dumb horror movie character ever, they wander through the woods in the middle of the fucking night and end up at the isolated home of Dr. Joseph Haider, a retired surgeon who looks like he stepped straight out of a Nazi medical facility. The good doctor slips these ditzy tourists some Rohypnol, because of course he does, and they wake up strapped to hospital beds in his basement alongside a Japanese tourist named Katsuro. It's at this point that Dr. Haider reveals his batshit insane plan. With all the glee of a kid on Christmas morning, he's going to surgically connect all 3 of them mouth to asshole, creating the world's first human centipede. What follows is a masterclass in medical malpractice, as Haider explains his previous success creating a 3-dog, 3 Rottweilers connected in the same disgusting configuration. Spoiler alert, the dogs died. But human anatomy is different, you see. The doctor has it all mapped out on his chalkboard with the kind of detailed diagrams that would make your proctologist faint. The surgery scene itself is mercifully restrained, focusing more on Haider's face lighting up with orgasmic pleasure than on the actual cutting and stitching. But the aftermath is where the true horror begins. Imagine waking up sewn to someone's ass with your lips attached to their butthole and your knees surgically fucked so you can only crawl. That's the reality for our 3 victims, with poor Katsuro leading the parade, Lindsay in the middle position, and Jenny bringing up the rear. What's both hilarious and horrifying is how Haider treats his new creation like a pet. He tries to train them, feeds them dog food, and throws tantrums when they don't behave. There's even a scene where he proudly shows them their reflection in a mirror like he's expecting them to be impressed with his handiwork. And when Katsuro eventually has to take a shit, well, let's just say Lindsay's strict Hollywood diet goes right out the fucking window. The plot thickens, if you'll pardon the expression, when 2 detectives show up investigating missing tourists. But they're about as competent as a quadriplegic lifeguard. And soon enough, Haider is planning a 4-person centipede with the cops as news segments. It all culminates in a blood-soaked finale where absolutely no one wins, especially not the audience's gag reflex. Holy shit! We need to talk about Dieter Laser as Dr. Joseph Haider. This performance isn't just good, it's fucking transcendent in its lunacy. Laser doesn't just play a mad scientist, he becomes a new gold standard for on-screen psychopaths making Dr. Hannibal Lecter look like a picky eater at a dinner party. Laser brings to Haider this reptilian, skeletal presence that's impossible to look away from. His sunken cheeks, those bulging eyes that never seem to blink, and that voice, Jesus Christ, that voice, like sandpaper wrapped around a German dictionary. Every time he says mein lieber Dreihund with that twisted affection, you feel like you need a shower. What makes Laser's performance so goddamn effective is that he never once winks at the camera. There's not a single moment where you catch him acknowledging the absurdity of the situation. He is 100% committed to this character's warped worldview. When he's training his centipede to fetch newspapers or screaming, "Feed her," while pointing at the middle segment, you can tell he's not playing for laughs. This sick bastard truly believes in his vision. The way Laser handles Haider's casual cruelty is what elevates this beyond mere schlock. There's almost an elegance to his sadism. Watch how he sips water in front of his dehydrated victims with the smug satisfaction of a cat toying with a mouse. Or how he responds to their suffering not with maniacal laughter, but with the mild disappointment of a man whose pets aren't performing as expected. Haider joins the pantheon of great movie mad scientists. But while Dr. Frankenstein wanted to play God by creating life, Haider wants to play God by perverting it. There's something almost childlike in his enthusiasm. If children were fucking psychopaths who sewed people together. When Laser struts around his surgical theater in blood-stained scrubs, You believe this man spent decades as a surgeon separating conjoined twins only to retire so he could reverse the process. Without Laser's unhinged commitment, the Human Centipede would collapse under the weight of its own ridiculous premise. Instead, he makes you believe that somewhere in Germany, this nightmare could actually happen. Let's talk about our three victims in this clusterfuck of a movie. Because surprisingly, their performances have more layers than you'd expect in a film about people being stitched ass to mouth. First up, we've got Ashley C. Williams and Ashlyn Yinney as Lindsay and Jenny, two American tourists with all the personality of a pair of flip-flops. When we first meet these girls, they're bumbling through Germany with dialogue so wooden you could build a fucking cabin with it. We're like totally lost. Should we ask for directions? Jesus Christ, it's horror movie 101, basic bitches about to meet their doom. But here's where things get interesting. Once these girls wake up strapped to hospital beds, something remarkable happens. Their acting transforms from Razzie-worthy to genuinely affecting. The terror in their eyes as Hyder explains his fucked up vision isn't fake. The screaming, the crying, the silent pleading, it all feels horrifyingly real. What's most impressive is what Williams and Yinney accomplish after the surgery. Without a single goddamn line of dialogue, using only their eyes and body language, they convey absolute horror and degradation. Williams as the middle segment has arguably the most nightmarish position, and the way she portrays her mental breakdown through just facial expressions is disturbingly effective. There's a moment when she realizes what's about to come through her surgically modified mouth that deserves more acting credit than anyone would ever admit. Then there's Akihiro Kitamura as Ketsuro, the Japanese tourist cursed to be the front segment. Unlike the girls, Ketsuro actually gets to speak, and holy shit does he make the most of it. His performance evolves from angry defiance to crushing despair to a weird kind of dignity. Kitamura brings a tragic nobility to this role that shouldn't be possible in a movie this depraved. Ketsuro's breakdown scene, where he apologizes to the girls before literally shitting into Williams' mouth, is played with such genuine remorse it's almost beautiful in its horror. And his final scene, Christ on a cracker, when he slices his own throat with glass rather than continue this nightmare, it's weirdly moving. His dying monologue about deserving this fate for mistreating his family is delivered with such conviction you almost forget you're watching a movie about a human centipede. What's fascinating is how the three victims develop a silent language between them. The hand-holding, the eye contact, the mutual suffering. It creates a bond that transcends their horrific situation. Despite barely interacting before being sewn together, these three strangers form a connection that's more human than anything their captor could understand. The film's final image, Lindsay alone, trapped between her dead companions, carries an emotional weight that this kind of sick exploitation flick has no right delivering. And that's a fucking achievement no one expected from a movie with this premise. Tom Six may have conceived one of the most depraved horror concepts in cinematic history. But let's give the sick bastard his due. The motherfucker can direct. There's a clinical precision to the Human Centipede that elevates it far beyond the torture porn trash heap where it rightfully belongs. The visual language Six creates is deliberately sterile and antiseptic, perfectly mirroring Hyder's twisted medical mindset. The doctor's home is all stark white walls, minimalist furniture, and cold, hard surfaces. Every frame feels scrubbed with bleach, both literally and metaphorically. This isn't some grimy Saw-style basement, it's a pristine environment where ungodly acts happen under bright, unforgiving lights. What's most impressive, and what most critics completely missed, is Six's remarkable restraint. For a movie built around such a grotesque premise, it shows shockingly little explicit content. The actual surgery scene? More suggestion than graphic detail. The infamous feeding sequence? Mostly reaction shots. The genius of Six's direction is forcing your imagination to do the heavy lifting, which is infinitely more disturbing than any practical effect could achieve. Six understands the power of the clinical gaze. His camera doesn't leer or exploit, it observes with detached fascination. The way he frames Hyder standing over his victims during the surgery explanation scene, shot from below like some demonic god, creates more dread than 100 jump scares. The composition of the centipede crawling down those sterile hallways, a grotesque violation of the immaculate space, is burned into your brain long after the credits roll. The direction also excels in creating unbearable tension through pacing. Six knows exactly when to let scenes breathe and when to cut them short. The dinner scene, where Hyder throws a tantrum because his pet won't eat, stretches on with excruciating deliberateness. Yet when something truly horrific happens, Six often cuts away quickly, again leaving your mind to torture itself with what you didn't see. His use of space is equally masterful. The house becomes a labyrinthine prison with its long corridors and stark doorways. 6 establishes the geography clearly enough that when escape attempts happen, we understand exactly what's at stake and why they're so difficult. The swimming pool scenes create a jarring juxtaposition, this place of leisure becoming another site of torment. Perhaps 6's greatest achievement is maintaining a consistent tone throughout. Despite the absurdity of the concept, he never winks at the audience or breaks the film's internal reality. This commitment to playing it straight makes the horror hit harder and the occasional dark humor land with more impact. He's created a fully realized nightmare world that operates by its own twisted logic. So while the Human Centipede might disgust you, offend you, or make you question your life choices for watching it, you can't deny that Tom 6 executed his fucked up vision with surprising technical skill. The restraint in his direction makes the concept infinitely more disturbing than if he'd gone for shocking gore. By focusing on clinical precision over explicit shock, 6 created something far more haunting than just another gross-out flick. Let's talk about the visual presentation of the Human Centipede, because holy shit, this movie looks way better than it has any right to. The cinematography by Goof de Koning creates this cold clinical aesthetic that perfectly matches the fucked up medical horror on display. Every frame feels meticulously composed, like we're watching some twisted surgical documentary rather than a horror film. The house itself becomes a goddamn character in this nightmare. Those pristine white walls, the sterile hallways, the surgical basement that looks like it was designed by some minimalist architect with a serial killer fetish. The color palette is deliberately washed out and cold, making every splash of blood or bodily fluid stand out in stark contrast. There's something about seeing such depraved acts happen in such a clean environment that makes it all the more disturbing. The way the camera moves through this house creates this suffocating sense of claustrophobia. Long tracking shots follow the characters down endless corridors, making escape seem impossible. The framing constantly emphasizes how trapped these poor bastards are. Wide shots showing the vastness of the house contrasted with tight, uncomfortably close shots when they're confined to Hyder's makeshift medical ward. De Koning's lighting choices deserve serious credit too. The harsh, unforgiving lighting in the surgery scenes feels like you're under those same operating lights, unable to look away from the horror. Then we get these beautifully composed shots of the centipede crawling through shadows, creating this grotesque silhouette that tells us everything without having to show explicit details. The camera work during the training scenes is particularly effective, often positioned from Hyder's perspective, forcing us to view his creation as he does, as some twisted pet rather than as human beings. Then it switches to low angles from the centipede's perspective, making Hyder loom like some terrifying giant. What really sells the whole fucking package is how the cinematography shifts throughout the film. Early scenes with the tourists have this slightly warm, conventional look that lulls you into a false sense of security. Then as we descend into Hyder's world, everything becomes increasingly sterile, cold, and visually alienating, mirroring the psychological journey of both the victims and the audience. For a movie about people sewn ass to mouth, the visual composition shows remarkable restraint and artistry. The cinematography doesn't just capture the horror, it enhances it, magnifies it, and makes it impossible to forget once you've seen it. The sound design in The Human Centipede is a masterclass in minimalist horror. While most modern horror films bludgeon you with orchestral stings and deafening jump scares, this movie knows when to shut the fuck up and let the silence do the talking. There's barely any music throughout the film, and that absence creates this vacuum where every small sound becomes excruciating. The muffled whimpers and gurgles from Lindsay and Jenny after they've been sewn into the centipede are more disturbing than any scream could ever be. You can hear their humanity being strangled in those sounds. Not quite human anymore, not quite animal. It's the audio equivalent of the uncanny valley, and it crawls right under your skin. When Katsuro, the only one who can still speak, finally breaks down in his native Japanese, his desperate pleas and eventual resignation hit harder without music telling you how to feel. His labored breathing and the wet sounds of his sobbing create this nightmarish soundtrack that's way more effective than some composer hammering away at dissonant strings. The ambient sounds of the house, the echo of footsteps on tile, the hum of medical equipment, the squeak of leather shoes, create this clinical atmosphere that makes everything feel more real, more immediate. There's no musical cue to warn you when something bad is about to happen. The horror just unfolds in this sterile, sonic environment. Even the bodily function sounds, and there are plenty, are presented with this matter-of-fact clarity that denies you any emotional distance. That first awful moment when Lindsay has to feed from Katsuro is made 10 times more horrific by the unfiltered sound design. No music drowns it out, no sonic distractions, just the raw, visceral reality of their situation. The sound editing creates a rhythm to the horror, like a fucked up heartbeat. Moments of unbearable silence punctuated by gasps, cries, and the occasional bursts of Hyder's unhinged shouting. This approach doesn't just make the film scarier, it makes it impossible to emotionally detach from what you're witnessing. Let's be honest here, the Human Centipede is fucking hilarious. Not in the way a comedy is funny, but in that pitch black, I'm definitely going to hell for laughing kind of way that makes you question your own sanity. The genius of this film is how it plays everything completely straight-faced while being fundamentally ridiculous. Take Dr. Hyder's attempt to train his human pet. There's this incredible scene where he's screaming, "Feed her," like some demented dog owner, then getting on all fours himself to demonstrate proper centipede crawling technique. It's absurd, it's horrifying, and it's fucking comedy gold if your sense of humor is warped enough. The whole concept is so far beyond the pale that it circles back to being funny. When Hyder proudly unveils his creation and holds up a hand mirror so each segment can see what they've become, it's like the world's most fucked up reveal on a plastic surgery show. The sheer commitment to this insanity without a single wink to the audience is what elevates it. The film's matter-of-fact approach to bodily functions is another source of its dark humor. When Katsuro apologizes before he has to take a shit that Lindsay will be forced to swallow, it's simultaneously the most horrific and most absurdly polite moment in cinema history. What the fuck do you even say in that situation? Sorry seems hilariously inadequate. Even the police investigation subplot has this Keystone Cops quality to it. These two detectives bumble around, drink the obviously drugged water, and conduct the world's least effective investigation, while Hyder's victims are literally crawling around in his basement. Their incompetence is so staggering it becomes comical. Dieter Laser's performance goes so far over the top that it creates its own stratosphere of camp. When he's celebrating the success of his surgery by gleefully shrieking, "I did IT," or when he's weeping over his dead 3-dog while planning his human version, you can't help but laugh at the sheer lunacy of it all. What makes all this sick humor work is that the film never stops to acknowledge how ridiculous it is. There's no winking at the camera, no clever one-liners to break the tension, just a steadfast commitment to its batshit premise that somehow makes it even funnier. The Human Centipede isn't just a horror film, it's one of the darkest comedies ever made, whether it meant to be or not. The Human Centipede crawled its way through the film festival circuit before shitting all over mainstream sensibilities. After premiering at London's Fright Fest in 2009, this cinematic abomination slithered through Leeds, Sitges, and Screamfest horror festivals, where audience reactions range from near vomiting to uncontrollable laughter. Six himself seemed fucking delighted by the polarized responses, particularly amused that Spanish audiences found his ass-to-mouth masterpiece hilariously entertaining. When it finally received its limited US theatrical release in April 2010, the film went out completely unrated because what the fuck were the MPAA supposed to do with this thing? Despite its microscopic budget, the movie only managed to scrape together about $180,000 domestically and just over $250,000 worldwide. Financially speaking, it was a turd, but in cultural impact, pure fucking gold. Critics were spectacularly divided. Rotten Tomatoes settled on a 49% rating, which feels appropriate for a film about a man sewing people's mouths to assholes. Some critics praised its clinical precision and commitment to its deranged concept, while others rightfully pointed out that watching people crawl around on all fours shitting into each other's mouths for 90 minutes might not constitute high art. The BBFC, those brave British bastards, passed the film completely uncut with an 18 certificate. Meanwhile, the marketing campaign pushed the bullshit claim that the film was 100% medically accurate and the most horrific film ever made. A quote 6 later confessed he couldn't actually attribute to anyone. What's fascinating is how the Human Centipede transcended its exploitative roots to become a genuine cultural phenomenon. South Park parodied it. College students held Human Centipede drinking games. It spawned memes, Halloween costumes, and enough horrified water cooler conversations to ensure everyone knew about this movie, whether they'd seen it or not. For a film with such a fundamentally repulsive premise, it achieved the impossible, becoming a household name without a single household wanting to actually watch it together. So why the fuck am I giving the Human Centipede a solid 7 out of 10? Because beneath all the shit and viscera, there's actually a well-crafted horror film that knows exactly what it is. Let's be honest about its flaws. The pacing drags in the middle, the dialogue is often wooden as hell, and the female leads are given almost nothing to do once they're sewn together except cry and look miserable. The cops are laughably incompetent, and there's no deeper meaning or social commentary to be found in this parade of perversion. But goddamn if this film doesn't excel in the places that truly matter for a horror movie. Dieter Laser's performance as Dr. Hyder is a masterclass in unhinged villainy, the kind of scenery-chewing madness that horror fans will reference for decades. The clinical visual style creates a sterile nightmare that perfectly complements the depraved subject matter. 6's direction shows remarkable restraint, letting your imagination fill in the most horrific details rather than drowning you in gore. What elevates the Human Centipede above standard shock value trash is its unwavering commitment to its premise. There's no winking at the camera, no half measures. The film presents its monstrous concept with such straight-faced seriousness that it loops back around to becoming darkly, uncomfortably funny. The audacity alone deserves recognition. The technical aspects deserve praise too. The makeup effects are disturbingly convincing despite the modest budget. The cinematography creates a claustrophobic atmosphere with its cold color palette and labyrinthine hallways. The minimalist sound design, focusing on silence and muffled screams rather than an intrusive score, demonstrates a sophisticated understanding of how to build tension. Most surprisingly, beneath its repulsive exterior beats the heart of old-school horror filmmaking. Strip away the Human Centipede concept, and you've got a mad scientist film worthy of the Universal Monsters tradition, just updated with modern surgical horror and a nihilistic worldview. So yes, 7 out of 10 stars. Not because it's a masterpiece, but because it accomplishes exactly what it sets out to do with technical proficiency and unwavering conviction. This isn't a movie for everyone. Hell, it's barely a movie for anyone with a functioning gag reflex. But for those seeking the extremes of cinematic experience, the Human Centipede delivers its revolting vision with disturbing competence. Well, my maggot-infested movie lovers, we've crawled through the digestive tract of Tom Six's depraved masterpiece. And I'm left with a strange feeling, not quite nausea, not quite admiration, but something festering beautifully in between. The Human Centipede is a film that shits on convention while simultaneously embracing classic horror traditions. It's a movie that shouldn't work, has no right to work, yet somehow stitches together enough technical competence and unhinged commitment to earn its place in the horror pantheon. For every moment of brilliance, Laser's bug-eyed lunacy, the clinical visuals, the gut-punch ending, there's a corresponding weakness. But unlike most shock value trash that relies solely on disgust, this film actually gives a damn about its craft. The surgical precision of its filmmaking mirrors its mad doctor's twisted vision. Is it for everyone? Fuck no. Your grandma shouldn't watch this unless she's secretly harboring mad scientist tendencies. But for those brave souls with iron stomachs and a taste for the transgressive, this is required viewing, a modern grotesquerie that will leave you forever changed. So I'm feeding it 7 squirming stars out of 10, acknowledging both its ambition and its excrement. Remember, darlings, in the grand digestive system of cinema, sometimes you're the mouth, sometimes you're the middle, and sometimes you're just along for the ride. This is Dr. Ghoulula, crawling back into my crypt until next time. Sleep tight, and whatever you do, don't accept dinner invitations from German surgeons. And as always, till next time, kiddies.